Hi, I'm Drew.
And I'm Sam.
And welcome to Drewling Samantics. Lovely, yeah. Left down a bit, right up a bit. Yeah, to your. Oh, bang on, mate. Bang.
Yeah, I just thought I'd make sure it was straight and make sure the sign looked good. And in you come and you take the piss. I mean, we've been on air for all of 15 seconds. It would have.
Yeah. I wasn't really referring to the sign, mate. I was referring to your hairline. You know.
Oh. Well, do you know?
I know. He says, pointing to his own receding hairline. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I was facing away from the camera, so you're talking about the hairline on my neck, which is
just struggling to find a gag there, to be honest.
Story of your career, isn't it, Drew? Anyway, hey, and we're in, and we're going
back at you. Yeah.
How are you, mate? All right.
I'm good. Thank you, Sam. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. You had a busy week.
Good. Yeah. Same old. Some interactive theatre and then paperwork at home, and we're looking forward again at the Watermill. We had a little debrief after Christmas, so again we've got sort of production meeting regarding that. So yeah, but it's busy, which has been lovely.
It's never ending, isn't it? Well, one thing ends and you start the next one, or you're almost looking. I mean, I've seen panto castings that have gone out and been filled already.
Absolutely. Yes, I've seen them as well. It's like, it's bizarre. It's just nipping into February, and what are we going? We're into December.
Yeah, and isn't it hard to believe that we're a few days into February now as well? Where did January go?
January went.
I mean, Christmas was mental and it was so busy, and then you think, right, okay, January's a little bit of a rest, but it's gone already.
No, bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. But there you go.
Speaking of being gone and time passing, what interesting things have we had going on recently, mate? And have we any sad news regarding passings?
We have. I've just been looking at the news as usual. So, like a good news reader, I have my notes in front of me.
Excellent.
There's a couple of sad losses this week. There was a lovely actor called Tim Barlow. Now, Tim was a lovely character actor. He's one of those faces you don't know him, but he's been in so many things. He's well known for. He's gone from Hot Fuzz to Les Mis, playing lots of little character roles, Doctor Who, all sorts of stuff like that. And he's one of those faces that we've spoken about in the past. People you don't know, but they crop up time after time after time, and they're the good workhorses of movies and dependable people. You need someone to sit in that chair or be that character, and you go get them. And Tim was one of those. He was a dependable, very, very talented. He's with his variety and his breadth of characterization. So yeah, so a very sad loss for Tim. Not saying even sadder, but a more well-known actor. It's Sylvia Sims. A lovely actor. I mean, she was known. I didn't know this, but she was known as the Grand Dame of British cinema. She has been over 50 films. She had. She was OBE. She was never a dame, but she was an OBE. I remember her from one. I used to like watching Sunday afternoon war films with my grandmother. Believe it or not, she loved it. She loved a war film. And Sylvia Sims was probably most famous for, I think, for Ice Cold and Alex.
Yes.
With what's his name, Mills. I can't ever think of his first name. Why can't I think of John Mills?
Don Mills, yes.
John Mills. Sir John Mills, we say. So with John Mills, a brilliant film. She was incredibly glamorous. They put some pictures up of her when she was at RADA. She studied at RADA. And absolutely, she rivaled Grace Kelly in beauty. She was stunning. But then she went on to do an amazing career. She made all those wonderful films. Ice Cold and Alex was one of them. And then more recently, she's had a recurring role in EastEnders as Olive Woodhouse. She kept popping up week after week, which is lovely. She played the Queen Mother to Helen Mirren in The Queen, Helen Mirren's Queen. So she was Queen Mum. And she was most recently, she was in Gentleman Jack with Sharon Jones, which was a great period piece, lovely piece. So yeah, she and she had loads and loads of BAFTA nominations to her name. So she passed away on 27th of January at 89. So bless her heart. So we say goodbye to Sylvia and Tim. I beg your pardon.
Well, yeah, raise a drink. What are you on today, mate?
I'm on coffee because I've been racing around still, but it's a very strong coffee.
Well, that's all right then. Cheers to them.
Cheers, buddy.
Two great losses, two brilliant.
Sylvia and Tim. Yeah, bless them.
So come on then, throw some happier things because we've done the sad.
I got a mixture of stuff. I'm gonna surprise you with a little thing at the end here, but a couple of things. Only Fools and Horses is set to close in the West End at the end of April, and then I believe it's chugging off on a national tour. So
so that obviously hits home a little bit because, as we discussed, it must have been a little while ago, season. Obviously, that used to be one of the subject matters or one of the homages that we used to do for various companies. And then lawsuits and things, not against us, of course, but in general, and the literary rights then became protected. I wonder if that a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's now going to go on tour.
I would imagine so, because I mean it was extended in the West End, and now if there's that whole thing of if you've got a play somewhere or a show going out, you don't want a competing company doing the play or whatever. So I think I mean obviously the producers Phil McIntyre and Jim Sullivan, they've gone, we need to protect this product, quite rightly. I mean it is a great product and a fabulous show in the West End. So you understand. I understand them keeping it. I mean, who's to say that the interactive, the dinner shows won't spark up again, because they're businessmen. If they can see a business opportunity, it'll happen. Who knows? But anyway, so that'll be out on tour. I don't know the cast. I don't know, they've not announced the touring cast with that yet.
I wonder if they've even cast it yet, mate.
No, but I mean, sometimes they say, and so will be playing. So we don't know whether it's going to be Paul Woodhouse or whoever. But that'll be on tour. Little bit of sad, controversial news. We all know the E&O are hit by Arts Council funding cuts, and now the Oldham Coliseum looks like it's going to go dark due to Arts Council cuts, which is a shame, because I mean the Coliseum is a great, it's been open for years, producing work for years, a great receiving house. So to see that go dark because of cuts is, that's.
Have you performed there?
Have I performed there? I've taught there.
Yeah,
I toured there years ago. Yeah, I can't remember what it was now. I think it might have been Chase Made in Cheapside. No, can't remember. It'll come back to me in a minute. It was a restoration. It was a restoration.
I was going to say it wasn't Steptoe, because that went all over.
Yeah, no, I only did the Steptoe in the West End. That went on a tour. Yeah, that did a big tour, and predominantly a northern tour as well, I believe.
Yes, yeah.
And again, talking of northern theatres, Blackpool Grand, which is, I have worked there a lot, and it's a beautiful Matcham theatre. It's absolutely gorgeous. There are plans, and they are going to be contested by the Grand, etc. There are plans for holiday homes or holiday lets behind the theatre. Right. Now, you'd have thought that wouldn't be a problem, except it's going to be, they want to use an access road, which is used at the moment for get-ins and get-outs, and hasn't been used by anyone other than the theatre for decades.
Yeah.
So that is then going to become a thoroughfare, which goes behind stage door, the entrance to the theatre bar. That's not a problem. But then you get into noise pollution, both affecting the theatre and affecting the holidaymakers. Because if you've got several hundred people traipsing through, an entrance or in and out the theatre after a show late at night, and you're on holiday and you're trying to get a bit of kip before going to the beach the next day, it ain't going to work, both ways. No. So there are moves to sort of contest it and say, or even, could it be rejigged? But it does seem like theatre is the second best. Oh, it doesn't matter if it affects the theatre. We just want to build this and make a shitload
so
of money.
Sad, isn't it?
And it is.
It's a throwback to the we are not viable. We are the last thought of with, for example, financial support during the unwelcome guest at its peak, and lots of other jobs and stuff were thought of. And yes, at the end of the day, we're not out there like the paramedics saving lives or the doctors saving lives, but actually the people in their homes would have gone and start raving bonkers if they hadn't had Netflix and TV and streaming and radio and DVDs and whatever. And where does all that come from? But we're not going to go back into that. That's in the past. We're moving forward. So, but yeah, it's a shame that theatre and the performance side of things do seem to get pushed down the pecking order when things like that come up.
A little bit of a second thought sometimes, aren't we? A little bit of a second thought, but that's the two theatres under threat, two northern theatres as well, which is interesting. But I'll say no more about that. And there's also producers and employers are asking that drama schools teach students more about business and tax and that kind of, how to run themselves as a business, because it's been reported that some younger actors are either they don't know about it or they haven't been told about it. I know we've discussed this previously. I was given a lecture at drama school, all very briefly, which was basically like, do your tax. It was like, but how, how does that, and nowadays, it's far simpler. You can file it online in half an hour, done, dusted. You can do it all in a day, but you've got to remember to do it, and you've got to know how to do it.
Which is rather poignant, because it was the beginning of this week that the deadline for payments, wasn't it? So
exactly. So I think that's probably why this has cropped up in the news, that there were probably several young actors going, oh, well, more than several. Actors going, oh Christ, what do I do?
I don't know how to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I hold my hands up. At the end of my first year, and it was about 3 or 4 months after, someone said to me, oh, have you done your tax? And I went, no, and that was, I was sort of August after April, and it was like, oh, I've got time to do it. But I scuttled off to do, and I was in a blind panic, and I scuttled off to a tax office and held my hands up, and they said, don't worry, we know it's all right, and then I got myself an accountant and sorted it out. But it was one of those things that when you're looking for work, you're a young actor, you've got bills to meet, you've got expenses, and you're looking for work. It's a very easy thing to overlook. So I think all the relevant parties are saying, just amongst other things, as part of their business, just teach them how to do it, or tell them that you got to do it. So that's an interesting,
very very valid point. And I think it's sort of been mentioned across the board, hasn't it, in that it's a good point to make it with regards to theatre and doing your tax return. I'm one of the sad people that does it in the first week of April, as soon as I'm able to do it, because then at least in my mind it's done and out of the way. Gone and dusted, But I've not been to drama school, and obviously you went to drama school before like electricity was invented, so things will be different.
Mate, the ark had just landed when I went to drama school. The earth was still wet. We're still walking through puddles, mate.
Performing in caves to the other local tribes. But I think it does spread further than that. I mean, if you look at maths as an example, what we're taught, or what children are taught, trigonometry and all these things are all very well, but actually when it comes to do people know how to work out VAT, and do they know how to look at, well, if there's a rise in this or effect? So I wonder if across the board perhaps education needs to make a focus on teaching life skills relevant to subjects, rather than just going, right, well, can you write an essay on Mark Twain? Or do you know what I mean? Like, I know it's very difficult.
I think there's a lot to be said for that, Sam. I think there's a lot to be said for handling yourself, because if you're reasonably confident in day-to-day management of being a human being, and getting through life, then I think everything else becomes slightly easier. It's if you know something, it's not worrying. Do you know what I mean? If you know about it, you know how to deal with it, it becomes less of a worry. You don't have to think about it. It's like you say, you do your tax the first week of April. Don't worry about it after that. I mean, I don't do mine then. I do mine a couple of months later. But
years later, you're in trouble, mate.
But no, but I'll do it I give it a couple of months later because that's where my tax year runs since so I've always done it on that date. But it's interesting. I think there are a lot of things about actors as a business that sometimes is a little bit slow to be learned. So but
I think a good example, and it's again away from our industry specifically, but you look at learning to drive and a driving test. Now, I'm sure people will write to us and correct me, but I'm going to go with it anyway. I'm pretty sure now when you do a driving test, I say now in comparison to when I learned to drive, you have to be able to either program a sat nav or use a sat nav, and you also have to be able to get to a destination in the sense that I don't know what your driving test was like because it was probably a horse and cart, but from my perspective, the instructor would go, right, make the next left, right, take the second exit on the roundabout, right, go all the way to the end and take a right at the junction. I believe now they will say, right, can you get me to blah, blah, blah? And they have to use their own, like reading the road signs and sort of knowledge of the area, which I think is far more applicable. I think because, and particularly the sat nav thing, and like I say, I'm sure people will comment or message us and say, no, Sam, you're talking absolute bollocks. But I believe you have to be able to use and program a sat nav, because who doesn't use a sat nav now when you go anywhere new? And in fact, I'll admit, I use a sat nav for almost every single journey I do, including the ones that I know inside out, back to front with my eyes closed, because you get traffic reports. And that, absolutely. And it will say, oh, actually, this road's closed, or blah, 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 or this has happened, or there's an accident here, or whatever. So you go, all right, well, I know a different way, so I'll go that way. Or the sat nav will go, do this instead. But that's only changed, really, I would say, in the last 10, 15 years. Certainly when I first started driving, sat navs were a very different thing. I've been driving about 20 years now, roughly. So I think that's an example, and perhaps that does need to be adopted within other things. With geography, do you really need to know about the different types of soil, or actually do you need to know, well, this is what side you drive when you go to a different country? And I just think maybe making things applicable to life, as we're talking about in drama school, teaching, right, here are some life skills. This is actually how you want to go about getting an agent. This is actually how you write an application letter or a cover letter. This is how you do a self-tape, not, right, let's study everything about performance, but none of the other side of things. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a difficult enough business, a difficult enough profession without, cobbling yourself with other problems. You don't need to not do stuff. If you know stuff, then it's easy. It's problem solved. Forewarned is forearmed. I mean, we had when Verona and I were working at Christmas, we had young actors coming up to saying, what do I do about this and what do I do about that? Okay, this is how you do an invoice. This is what you need to put on the, this is how, because people, they're not taught. I mean, some people say, well, why should you know that? Well, you are your own business, but until you know that as an actor, as a performer, you are a business. You're a sole trader, for want of a better word. And you've got to run it like that, and you do have to know how to invoice, send invoices. Do I pay VAT? Not yet, but blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So, interesting. I'll tell you what, completely random, and it has nothing to do with anything, but I'm just intrigued. Would you describe yourself as self-employed or freelance?
Oh, interesting.
Random question. I was having a discussion with Sophie, my other half, because I was filling something in, and they were two options on a list of employed, unemployed, part-time, blah, blah, blah. And then it said self-employed, and then it said freelance. And they're the same thing. But
aren't they? Oh, yeah. Although, could you be self-employed but work for an organization?
Yes, but then aren't you a freelancer anyway, because you're employed by them on a
ad hoc basis? Yeah.
So
interesting. I've always referred to myself as self-employed, but that's only because I see that in terms of a financial standing within I'm not on, I'm not PAYE, I'm not employed.
Yeah.
I don't work for a company, blah, 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 blah. And that's what they read on my tax code,
I agree. I've always been self-employed, but I think that's mainly because whenever I've been filling something in or describing something, freelance has never really been an option.
Yes, that option hasn't been available.
Yeah. So yeah, there you go. Random thought for you.
That's an interesting question. Interesting.
Yeah.
Right, now I'm going to throw something at you now. A little survey has been carried out by the stage, and knowing your love of the musical, can I ask you a question? Right.
Oh God.
Now, they ran a little survey for the most popular musical of the 21st century that had most popular new musical that had received an Oscar prize, an Olivier for a new musical. So, I'll get this right. 21st most popular musical of the 21st century that has won the Olivier for best new musical since 2000.
Since 2000.
God. 2000. So there were 5 of them that came out once they looked at all the categories. Have you got the list of 5, or have you just got the winner? No, I've got the list of 5.
The list of 5.
21 musicals have won the prize. So 21 and 21 all received votes.
Oh,
okay.
Wow. Okay.
So they were all voted for. So they will have won the Olivier for the best new musical since 2000.
Well, I'm pretty sure that Book of Mormon won it, but I'm not sure whether it will be in the 5.
You're right.
It is in the 5. It is in the 5.
And it is in the 5.
Okay.
Let's narrow it down. Book of Mormon is number 5.
It's number 5. Okay, so it's a good start. It's all going to go downhill from here. But I'm going to go for Come From Away.
It was one of the musicals, and it just fell out of underneath. It's not in the top 5.
Not in the top 5. The most obvious one that jumps to mind is Hamilton.
Number 2.
Number 2. Oh God.
Very interesting. This I was very surprised, but then not so surprised. So you've got 5. You've got 2.
5 and 2. I mean,
you've got 1, 3, and 4 to get.
I'm not sure I'd even know where to go next. I'm trying to think back what.
So, all right, I'll give you a clue. They asked men, women, and children. They were the 3 categories, and then they amalgamated the results.
Right.
So, what do you think children voted for?
Well, it's the best new musical. Madagascar's not in there, is it?
No.
Best new musical for children. I mean, Frozen.
No.
I'm not sure it even got nominated for anything.
No, it didn't. No.
I'm trying to think. So we're talking since 2000.
This is more recent. Well, recent-ish.
More recent. Oh, I was about to say
recent-ish.
But that removes that. No, you're gonna have to put me out my misery. I wouldn't even know where to go.
So it was Matilda.
Oh gosh, yeah, I forgot.
So in reverse order, going from 5 to 1, we had Book of Mormon. Yep. Then it was Billy Elliot, believe it or not.
God, that's since 2000.
Yeah. Billy Elliot, Matilda was that, Hamilton 2, and the most popular, Jersey Boys. Not necessarily the most visited, but the most popular.
Genuinely, that wouldn't have been in my top 25, 30 to think of.
Very interesting, isn't it? It's a very interesting, very interesting, spread. I mean, there was some. I think the last out of the 21 went down to Hook. I'm trying to remember them all. Come From Away was very high up. There was some very interesting ones in there, but those are the 5 most popular. Not necessarily the most attended, but as someone pointed out to me, if you ask 1,000 people, if 300 have been to see Jersey Boys, then that's going to be the most popular because the vote's going to be split. So it's slightly skewed, but it was an interesting, cross section. Talking of Jersey Boys, and a little bit of news that I hadn't got on my notes, but it was great fun. A couple of things have happened, actually, I should say. Little audience altercations. Now, I've got a friend on the tour of Jersey Boys at the moment. Right. They were in Edinburgh, and a drunken fight broke out in the audience. For whatever reason, someone had asked someone to shut up because they were drunk and whatever. A fight broke out. The staff your stewards went in, front of house staff sorted it all out. Then another fight broke out in the stalls. They kicked off. So 2 fights in the stalls. Well, during Jersey Boys, they had to halt the show for 20 minutes and calm them down.
Not to cast aspersions, but only in Scotland.
Well, you say that. I mean, but also there's interestingly came out, and I'm just going to double check my information on this. Rose Ayling-Ellis is in a production at the moment, a Shakespeare production. And I'm trying to think. I'm trying to remember what show she's in, but that was disrupted because it's an accessible show for the deaf, and they have been visited by lots. We go. They've been visited by lots of people in the audience, lots of deaf people. It's signed, it's captioned. And then somebody in the audience the other day stood up and shouted that you are discriminating against the hearing. Some entitled knob stood up. I was just trying to think. She's is it As You Like It she's in at the moment? Is that the? I think it is, mate. I'm just having a. Yes, you are right. As You Like It. I was going to say another one. But yeah. So, and it was interrupted. I'm reading this from notes. Interrupted by a screaming heckler who said discriminated against hearing people. And he was looking directly at Rose Ayling-Ellis, probably having a little pun. But they have BSL performances, which was attended by over 106 deaf people. So she said that is why we do accessible theatre, which is bang.
I guess on the plus side, at least most of the audience wouldn't have heard the heckle. But no. I'm joking. But isn't that interesting that the audience is, they're kicking off? It's ridiculous. It really is.
Shocking.
I don't even know how to take that, really.
I don't know whether this person was. I mean, I mentioned the Scots one first because that's just ridiculous audience behaviour, and it's not the first time that pissed audience members have kicked off. Someone kicking off, actually standing up, and I mean, okay, heckle a performance, but
you say that in the right kind of performance. It's I'm sure you're expecting it in Shakespeare. But
I don't know if you're in the pit at the Globe, maybe. Yeah. But I mean, to heckle that, to attack a performer on stage and say you are discriminating against hearing people, plus the fact the poor cow can't hear you or is going to find it difficult to hear a heckler in the dark, whatever. It's like, come on, I mean, I don't know the outcome of that. I don't know if they were ejected. I don't either way. But I find it extraordinary that somebody who goes to the theatre would find, that level of entitlement makes me want to puke, basically. I would have thrown them out and banned them,
It's madness. I mean,
extraordinary. That a theatre lover, hopefully, would get so annoyed that other people are enjoying, how is...
Making things more accessible and more welcoming to those who are not what is considered, and I use this as loosely as possible, normal. I know what you mean. Standard, the what is considered to be more common. To suggest that being more open or being more inclusive is then being negative against those who are already privileged. I know it's the most entitled piece of bullshit ever. I tell you what, it's not connected in any way really, other than the fact it's crazy madness and something that's bound to spark debate. A story that I want to mention and probably want to wrap us up because it will end up with great debate on our social media, etc.
Go for it. Let's open it up.
I am going to mention the name of a well-loved and highly a man with many accolades and who has been in the business for a long, long time. The name Alec Baldwin. Can you possibly guess where I might be going next?
Yeah, I can, mate. And it's tricky territory, isn't it? It really is.
I think we're doing our listeners and watchers a disservice if we don't talk about it, because we discovered, was it last week? I think Alec Baldwin is now going to be charged with I believe it's involuntary manslaughter. Is that the correct?
That's the one, yeah.
Or so. Back in, I want to say it was October last year, October 21, I believe, on the set for Rust, which is his brand new Western film that I believe he's producing and starring in. I've got limited details on certain things, but I will do my best to provide what I have got for anyone that isn't aware. And there was a very, very tragic incident where a gun was mistakenly fired, or a gun that was supposedly a prop gun turned out not to be, or was loaded with blanks and was fired, and resulted in the death of Helena Hutchins, cinematographer, very, very talented lady. Essentially an enormous accident, a terrible tragedy. Obviously nothing was deliberate, but it resulted in her death. And I believe actually the director, Joel Souza, I think it is, or something.
Yeah, like yeah. He was injured, wasn't he?
He was injured by the same bullet, or by the same bullet.
Yeah.
But he survived. He was in hospital, but he did survive, whereas she sadly passed away. Now, Mr. Baldwin was holding the gun and again, inverted commas, fired the gun. But it's an interesting story because he is now being held, him and the armourer. In fact, I've written her name down somewhere. Bear with. So the armourer is called... God, why can't I find it? Hannah Gutierrez Reed. She was the armourer on the film. They're both being charged with involuntary manslaughter. Now, I am not going to go on either side of the fence because it is not my position to do so. However, I do want to discuss it. I do want to mention it briefly because I'm a little bit shocked, personally, that Alec Baldwin is being charged, because you read some of the information, and again, it's one of those situations we'll never know what happened because we weren't there, and the media will scapegoat and will exaggerate and do whatever. However, as far as I can tell, he was handed the gun, whether it was by her or by someone who was in her employ or working for her team, but he was told, this is a prop gun, it is loaded with blanks. Now, I've been on sets, you've been on sets where we've had to deal with weapons, and there's been an armourer or there's been a team of armourers there to deal with those sorts of things. You don't just get chucked a gun and do what you want with it. The number one rule is you never actually point a weapon at someone and fire. You always aim off, and the cinematographer or the DOP or whoever will make it look as though it's pointed in the right direction, and it's done like that. But I personally, and this is as far as my opinion is going to sort of come in, and I'm not going to, again, sort of argue with lawyers who have made decisions and people who are prosecuting and doing whatever. But if I was on a set and I was handed a prop weapon by an armourer or someone from the team of the armourers, and I was told, this is loaded with blanks, this is a prop, at that point, I am taking that word as gospel. I am not going to question that, because someone far more trained and far more important and far more qualified than I has said that. So that, to me, is a fact. That is the truth. So I would not be questioning that or checking that. Go on, sorry.
No, as I say, putting yourself in Alec Baldwin's position, if you are, like you say, if you are handed a gun and you are told it is safe to use because they are blanks, then you take them on their word, as you said.
Yeah.
If someone says, right, that's your gun, I believe it's safe to use, will you check it? If then he didn't, then he is in some way culpable. But I don't believe he was told to check it. Again, we don't know every fact that's said on set. I'm wondering, and this is just me because I don't know the law either about how the legal system works on these. I'm wondering whether, because the gun was loaded with live ammo, and we'll never know how that happened, Well, we might find out. But because of that gun was loaded by the armourer and then given to someone who fired it, are they culpable because they've both delivered a bullet that injured and then killed someone? Is that how the law is seeing it? Because it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because then you've got to feel sorry for both. You've got to feel sorry for all the parties. It's a tragedy.
Of course.
But, if you say, well, you put it in there, you're culpable because you got it wrong. You pointed the gun and fired it, so you delivered the bullet that has injured someone and killed someone. Yeah. Maybe that's the way they're seeing it. I don't know. I mean, it's a tricky one because you say you do things by trust. You are. It's like if a stuntman says, okay, everything's safe, you can jump off there. If you jumped and things weren't safe, and if I jumped off a building and I hit something that then killed someone, do you know what I mean? If I hit something that fire, would I then be guilty of that, having been told by the stuntman it's all safe to do?
I guess this is where the grey area comes in.
Yeah,
and I am not in a position to give an opinion
No.
But to me, it seems odd if they are both being charged with the same thing on the same level for exactly the reasons you've specified. Now, I've read bits that suggested that Alec Baldwin wasn't paying attention or he was on his phone while they were doing the safety briefing, and that the armourer, Miss Gutierrez Reed, left set, although she shouldn't have done. So there are various things that they are culpable for doing and shouldn't have done or whatever. But the massive thing that comes back to me, and I mean no disrespect to the family or indeed Miss Helena, sorry, I've forgotten her surname.
Gutierrez.
Is it Hank? No. Helena
no,
Hutchins,
not sorry.
So Helena Hutchins.
Yeah.
I mean no disrespect, but putting myself in Alec Baldwin's shoes there, if I have been told this is safe, carry on and do what you got to do, I have put everything in the hands of that person. So are you responsible? It's hard to say. Because you either to avoid being responsible there, what you're essentially saying is, well, you don't do it at all, in which case how do you feel? Like he's pointed it at someone when he shouldn't have done, but equally, like if you're on set and someone gives you something and says that's safe to eat, and then you eat it, and are you technically committing suicide because you've eaten something that you haven't checked is safe? I mean, I know I'm blowing things out of proportion.
No, but by extension, you are kind of saying it's a fair. I mean,
you ate it, well, yeah, but
we can only wait and see how this goes. It'll be very interesting from an acting and a production point of view where this story goes. Yeah, because as you say, I mean,
it makes me worry that something on that high end, and there are lots of rumours that the budget is stretched and that they were cutting corners and it wasn't as safe as it should have been. But we are still talking big money, big budget filming here. And you and I spend a lot of time working in things that aren't big budget. So it then makes me concerned that, well, if they're massive budget and actors are being held culpable for things, albeit we don't know just how much he was messing around and what else was going on, but equally there is that slight worry there. But certainly a story that we shall keep eyes on in the near future. And speaking of near future, there we go, a nice little segue in there. We got a guest next week, Drew.
We have indeed. We certainly have a wonderful guest next week. I'm not going to say, but an old friend of mine who has got some lovely stuff to talk about. Absolutely lovely stuff. It'll be a joy to see them on the show.
Yes. And safe to say, we're not going to be upstaged by one of our own team. No. This person will come in and will be wonderful, and I'm very, very excited for them to be on the show. But obviously, we love Picnic as well, and it was great to have him last week. So, to that, mate, why don't we raise a glass, or in your case, raise our faces?
There we are.
The
company mug.
Yeah, and cheers to you, mate. I'll see you next week, and everyone at home or out on the road or wherever you may be listening or watching us. Thank you for joining. We'll see you next week as well.
See you next week, Sam. See you next week, everyone. Bye bye.
Thanks again for watching this episode of Drewling Samantics.
Please make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video.
Don't forget, we're also available as audio only. Just search Drewling Samantics in any good podcast app. And please support us on social media. All our links and handles are on screen now.
We love welcoming new followers and subscribers, so why not share with your family and friends so they can join in too? Thanks very much. See you next time.